Now we're going to address an item type that shows up very often on the LSAT's logical reasoning section. But if you've checked around, you realize that some of the famous franchises tell you to skip these questions, unless you have time left over, or unless you're doing really, really well. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a question from the June 2007 LSAT that's available as a PDF file for free from lsac.org. And you can see why when we get to section 2, question 12, why they tell you to skip it. Look at all those words. It looks as long as a reading comprehension whole passage. There are 368 words in number 12. Count them yourself. Since you have an average of 84 seconds per question on a logical reasoning question on this section, that means you've got about 4 words per second to read, as long as you don't reread, and as long as you don't waste your time thinking. So we don't want to read all of those words. We want to read as little as possible and find the right answer. Question 12 says, which one of the following arguments is most similar in its reasoning to the argument above? Well, if it's an argument, it has to have a conclusion. And if it has similar logic, it has to have the same conclusion. So we want to reduce down our reading and read only the conclusion to find an answer that matches. The passage concludes, therefore, one cannot be obliged both to answer all questions truthfully and to keep all promises. So we can't do two things together. Answer A, and so, it cannot be true both that we have the unencumbered right to say whatever we want and that we have the duty to be civil. We can't do two things. Answer B, it follows that some politicians must deceive. Do you really think they're going to make that the right answer on the law school admission test and send you to law school? Answer C, so whatever we do, we risk her criticism. Answer D, so either the creditors did not have legitimate claims or the business did not have sufficient resources. This has two things, but it doesn't say we can't do both things. Answer E, so we will have to keep our business hours as they stand. Did you hear that only one answer ended the way we want it to end? That we can't do two things? It was answer A. We did that by reading 112 words, including the question. That's less than a third of the words that were on the page, and we found our right answer. We could check it by reading the passage completely. Suppose I have promised to keep a confidence and someone asks me a question that I cannot answer truthfully without thereby breaking the promise. Obviously, I cannot both keep and break the same promise. Therefore, one cannot be obliged both to answer all questions truthfully and to keep all promises. How does answer A go? It is claimed that we have the unencumbered right to say whatever we want. It is also claimed that we have the obligation to be civil to others. But civility requires that we not always say what we want. So it cannot be true both that we have the unencumbered right to say whatever we want and that we have the duty to be civil. We want to spend all of our 84 seconds trying to find the right answer and reassure ourselves that we have the right answer. We don't have time to tell nobody what's wrong about the 4 wrong answers, because nobody cares. Now we can use the same approach on question 2 of section 2. It looks pretty much the same. This one isn't so bad. It only has about 247 words, so that gives you about 3 words per second as long as you don't reread or think. We read the question, which one of the following uses flawed reasoning that most closely resembled the flawed reasoning used in the argument above? This can be a little tricky because if you pick an answer that makes sense, they already told you it's wrong. You're supposed to look for flawed reasoning, but it's got to have a conclusion. So we'll read the conclusion first. Therefore, Rose's dogs are moderate barkers. We have to have the same conclusion. A, therefore Jane makes somewhat good grades. B, therefore this household cleaner is moderately toxic. C, therefore some members of the Perry family live in Greene County and some live in William County. D, therefore Bob knows both shorthand and calculus. And E, therefore half of the dresses in this closet are Kanishas and half of them are Connie's. Which answers end the same way as therefore Rose's dogs are moderate barkers? At this point, I'd keep both A and B on the list. A ended, therefore Jane makes somewhat good grades. B says, therefore this household cleaner is moderately toxic. Let's look at the passage. All Labrador retrievers bark a great deal. All St. Bernards bark infrequently. Each of Rose's dogs is a cross between a Labrador retriever and a St. Bernard. Therefore, Rose's dogs are moderate barkers. Sounds like flawed logic to me. A, all students who study diligently make good grades. Aren't you encouraged? But some students who do not study diligently also make good grades. I bet you're even more encouraged. Jane studies somewhat diligently, therefore Jane makes somewhat good grades. Can you tell if that's illogical or not? B, all type A chemicals are extremely toxic to human beings. All type B chemicals are non-toxic to human beings. This household cleaner is a mixture of type A chemical and type B chemical. Therefore, this household cleaner is moderately toxic. Doesn't that sound like the same similar flawed logic? That's what makes answer B correct. Overall, we had to read about 79 words as opposed to 247 words, so we read about 1 word per second, and we got a chance to think and reread.